Does the church hate women? I mean, look at the leaders of the church. All I see is men. Where in the world are the women?
Open my eyes to see you. Give me heaven's perspective.
As a Catholic woman, let me tell you what's up. The church teaches that, quote, man and woman are both with one and the same dignity in the image of God, that we have equal worth. So how does this play out? Well, for one, the church herself is called the bride of Christ. And so we call the church as a whole she, as united to her bridegroom, Jesus. Obviously, the church buildings aren't called she, but the church as a whole made up of the members is called she. What an honor to femininity this is, to call the church a she. Alright, slow your roll, Madeline. The church is still subject to a guy, to the God you worship. And for that matter, Jesus is a dude too. Interesting point there. So, you may not have thought about this before, but God actually does not have a gender. He is, quote, neither man nor woman. He is God. And we call God he because he's revealed himself as our Father, but this is by way of analogy. As for Jesus being a man, yes, God could have chosen any way to save us from death, and he chose a man. He could have saved us with the snap of a finger with a woman, but in his perfection, he chose a man. But let's not forget that he entrusted this man to Mary, the mother of God, a woman. In fact, Mary, the mother of God, is reverenced more than any other saint in the church. She's reverenced even more than St. Peter, who was our first pope. Women are so respected in the church that we are known as the crown of creation. If you remember in the story of Genesis, the story of creation, God creates first heaven and earth, then light, then the sky and the sea, then the plants, then the animals, and finally man. Now, in this order that he created everything into existence, everything becomes more and more complex and more beautiful. He calls everything he created good, until man, God calls very good. But it's not good for man to be alone, and so he creates women. Woman is last in the order of creation. And so, since creation ascends in beauty and complexity, and women is created last, it means that woman is the most beautiful, most complex of all creation. What's more is, there's a word in Genesis that's used to describe woman, and it's translated as helper. And at first I'm like, whoa, like, I'm not gonna be just some helper to a guy, like, that's a little messed up. But if we look at it a bit more closely, another time that this word is used in the Bible is in reference to God himself in the Psalms. Woo-wee! Okay, so if women are so special, then why can't women be priests? Well, to put it simply, Jesus only appointed men as priests. At the Last Supper, when he instituted the priesthood, he chose only men to be there, and this was intentional. He could have chosen the only other person untouched by sin, his mother, but he didn't. He chose for men to be at the Last Supper, and only men. And there's more on that in the description. And this is not a bash on women at all. In fact, Jesus honored women when it was radical to do so. In John's Gospel, he defends a woman who's about to be stoned for adultery. In the same Gospel, he speaks with an adulterous woman and reveals that he's the Messiah to her. And in Mark's Gospel, he does not rebuke a hemorrhaging woman who touches him, but rather calls her daughter and cures her. Now, on top of this, there are hundreds and hundreds of women who are honored as saints in the church. In fact, there are even some who are named doctors of the church, which means they contributed significantly to our theology and doctrine. So no, the church does not hate women. Rather, we uphold them in their dignity and their beauty and in all that they are. So, I will close off with a quote from St. Pope John Paul II. The church gives thanks for all the manifestations of the feminine genius, which have appeared in the course of history, in the midst of all peoples and nations. She gives thanks for all the fruits of feminine holiness.